Hello everyone, I'm your host Labanaz and welcome to our second segment and I'm joined by my co-host Torcha. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Torcha and I'm the co-host for this episode and with my
guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Yvonne Sam. I'm a retired head nurse and a secondary school teacher. I'm also the chair of the Rights and Freedom Committee for the Black Community Resource Center, a columnist for the Montreal community newspaper called Montreal Community Contact, with articles also appearing in the Huffington Post, the Gazette, the National Post, and Toronto Sun. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. You know that this week, Quebec and LaSalle Borough celebrates Intercultural Harmony Week. This is a concept that is often used in Quebec, and we see people having festivals or concerts with dancing together and food for that day. And after then, we go back to the realities of facing systemic discrimination, exclusion, etc., making us ask ourselves, what is the interculturalism Quebec is taking about? Mrs. Sam, can you tell us, as a senior racialized woman in Quebec, what does interculturalism means to you, and do you feel it is truly practiced in Quebec?
Well, let me begin by saying it's interculturalism and multiculturalism are usually tossed together in the same pot. And defining a term can be very difficult, and you know that Quebec has difficulty with definitions, as you see in the word racism. Defining a term can be very, very difficult. Unlike multiculturalism, interculturalism emphasizes the common link between all Quebecers, native-born or otherwise. It's the French language is what is really at play in interculturalism. Quebec is a cultural linguistic minority within Canada. The intercultural model that they emphasize, that they speak about, represents a desire for affirmation by the Francophone population of Quebec. That's what it basically is. In 1981, René Lévesque published a policy called Autant de façons d'être Québec, many ways of being a Quebecois. That was the start of things so different. It was the first action planned to replace the respect or disrespect of the principles of multiculturalism. As a racialized person, I would say it is not practiced in Quebec. Interculturalism is not practiced.
Okay. Thank you for your response. Well, we face discrimination and systemic racism every day in schools, jobs, in the metro, on the street, while driving. We are racially profiled. We are not even allowed to be teachers if you wear a hijab as a Muslim woman in Quebec. So this contradicts the concept of interculturalism. Plus, in schools, mainstream teachers refuse to take time to understand immigrant children and what they're going through, and kids are quickly sent to alternative specialized classes if they don't learn French quickly. So where is the practice of interculturalism? Mrs. Sam, can you please comment on what was just said?
Well, if I'm to repeat myself, Quebec's model of interculturalism is inherently secular. I can't stress that enough. It's the idea that Quebecers, we hope to get to the point where immigrants and people who are born here interact with each other in French. That's the key thing. We want to get to that point. If I go to sum it up, if you were to ask me to sum it up, then the cultural model represents a desire, again I said, for affirmation by the Francophone population of Quebec. That's what it basically plainly put.
In reality, we don't see this in Quebec society because visible minorities, people are overrepresented in low-paying jobs. There is no practice of employment equity, and fair representation in decision-making jobs is lacking. We're racially profiled, denied access in culturally relevant services and jobs due to learned language or religion or the way that we are dressed. You know, all of this sends a negative message to minority cultures like myself that we or our needs are not important and that we just live on tolerance, while it empowers the majority Quebecers to feel superior. Mrs. Sam, perhaps you might be able to draw some perspective of these issues that don't reflect the true vision of interculturalism in Quebec.
Intercultural conflicts arise because of misunderstanding of different cultural, ethnic, religious values, different social class, or gender inequality. And most of these conflicts are a result of intolerance and ignorance of those differences. Quebec is Canada's second most populous province. It has never ever endorsed the country's multiculturalism policy that would have sort of sidestepped or avoided the problems we have seen here in Quebec. as I said before, the term first popped the day they rejected the multiculturalism the policy proposed by the father, Pierre Trudeau, putting their own thing. And we haven't made any progress. We haven't made any progress because that was basically, as I said before, put in place to ignore multiculturalism in favor of their model called interculturalism. So that is why we will always have this. As long as interculturalism exists, we'll always have this difference, because next to interculturalism stands the French language, the second hurdle to cross.
Yes. Well, in our first segment, our mayor of LaSalle Borough and Maddie Diop, her staff told us that they're trying to make changes in the borough. But when it comes to the school discriminatory practice we face as youths, it is not the mayor's jurisdiction to make changes. Please tell us what you think about that.
As a school teacher, as a qualified school teacher, that is not her jurisdiction. That is not her jurisdiction, not in her job title, not in her goals to be achieved, not in her wish bag for her to do that. We have to go back to the government, because in a large part, interculturalism, a result of the struggles and social tensions which characterize the history of this province. Quebec has a very checkered history. Interculturalism, the mayor has no right in education. That is not her domain. She's not the mayor of education. She's the mayor of a city, a borough. We have to go back to the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Immigration. That is their job. In the meantime, a lot depends on us also as immigrants, if we have voting power, voting rights, to make sure that our vote counts. When the ballot box time comes, must make sure our vote counts.
Yep. Multiculturalism within a bilingual framework in Canadian society demonstrates that it is an inclusive country as it recognizes diversity and equalizes various cultures to form a less hierarchical society that does not enforce the dominance of one cultural practice or expression over the other. At the same time, it nurtures different cultures, protecting the rights and the welfare of everyone. While the intercultural model relies heavily on centrality of a dominant culture such as Quebec culture, can you comment on this?
If Quebec had allowed the multicultural policy to remain in place, to work along with it, we'd have seen such a great difference. But then again, Quebec is, and if you notice that usually other provinces stand off and let the bully run this place. But had they embraced Pierre Trudeau multiculturalism policy, we would have seen so much. Half of the tensions we have here, half of the ethnic divisions, half of the alienation, we would have seen such a change in that. Perhaps even non-existence. But they chose, as always, to be different. Quebec has always been a different child. Same parents, but different child. And that is what interculturalism is, results of their toy. Multiculturalism has worked. It's worked in other provinces. If we give a chance to work here, we should give a chance to work here and see. But unfortunately, this is Quebec. C'est la vie.
Well, thank you for your response. We have come to the end of this segment. I hope you enjoyed it.
So this is the end of the segment 2, and we really appreciate what Mrs. Sam said and my co-host Laiba.
Yeah, so we'll see you for the next podcast. So until then, this is your host Laiba Naz, and with Torcha. And don't forget, making changes requires everyone.